Part 166. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 1651. Chapter 1651 Extra Chapter of the Chu Brothers, 5. When the little princess arrived at the Chu family, she looked at the Chu family up and down. It was worthy of being the most wealthy family in S country. The furnishings and decoration of this house were really no worse than those in the palace. The little princess used her own connections to arrange everything, so now everyone in the Chu family, including Mr. Chu and Mrs. Chu, don't know that the outstanding-looking girl in front of them in a maid outfit is the famous little royal princess of country S today. The little princess inserted herself into the Chu family as a servant serving Chu Sensiu. This identity also means that she has direct contact with Chu Sensiu, and it will be easier for her to understand Chu Sensiu and find out Chu Sensiu. Sensiu discovered his weakness, and then used this to cancel the engagement with Chu Sensiu. The little princess made a good plan. Now she has everything ready and all she needs is the east wind. Finally, when the Chu family came back from the palace, it was already 11 o'clock in the middle of the night. However, because of the long waiting time, the little princess sat silently on the stairs and started talking. Normally by this point, she would have already fallen asleep. The little princess sat at the corner of the stairs and fell asleep leaning on the handrail of the stairs. At this time, Chu Sensiu went upstairs to go back to his room, but halfway there, he found an unfamiliar face on the stairs. Chu Sensiu frowned. How could he remember that he hadn't seen this person yet this afternoon? Such a maid suddenly appeared when he came back. Chu Sensiu's eyes fell on that childish face. The girl's skin was white and tender, could be broken by a blow, and her facial features were very delicate. With a palm-sized face, thin lips, and long eyelashes, she looks as cute and beautiful as a Barbie doll. Chu Sensiu took a breath of cold air. Is there a threshold for good looks to be a maid now? This girl doesn't look like a servant, but more like a rich lady from some family. The kind of temperament she exudes from the inside out shows her nobility and beauty. Chu Sensiu slowed down his pace, trying not to wake up the sleeping girl. Looks like he is only 15 or 16 years old. He started working at such a young age? Chu Sensiu remembered that the maids recruited by the Chu family were all admitted after graduating from specialized schools. They were all very professional and skilled. The girl in front of me probably just has a baby face, so she looks young. Chu Sensiu thought this, and he had already walked to the girl. Chu Sensiu sighed. It was already this time, and he couldn't rest until his master came back. Chu Sensiu thought it would be really difficult for them. So Chu Sensiu took off his coat and put it on the girl's shoulders. The girl was sleeping very lightly. Although Chu Sensiu moved very lightly, she still blinked when Chu Sensiu put the clothes on her. After a few glances, he slowly opened his eyes. The little princess opened her eyes, and what came into view was a face with perfect lines and clear curves. When the little princess was investigating Chu Sensiu before, she had seen a lot of his photos and videos. At that time, she felt that Chu Sensiu was a very good-looking boy. But when the real person stood in front of her, the little princess realized how evil and charming this person's face really was. The little princess took a breath of cold air. Their eyes met, and the distance between them was only 10 centimeters. You're awake. Chu Sensiu said, straightening up his hunched body, and then said, Go to sleep, I don't need you now. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 1652. Chapter 1652 Extra Chapter of the Chu Brothers, 6. Chu Sensiu looked calm on the surface, but in fact, he was deeply shocked when the girl opened her eyes. What kind of eyes are those? Chu Sensiu thought. The starry sky-like eyes described in the novel are probably not like this. There is a sea of stars in her eyes. The little princess was stunned for a moment, and Chu Sensiu said nothing. The two looked at each other and were silent for 2 seconds. The atmosphere was inexplicably awkward. The little princess asked tentatively, "Well, I fell asleep during working hours, aren't you angry and don't you plan to punish me?" Chu Sensio smiled, and the little princess was dazzled by that bright smile. It seems that Guerlain is understandably obsessed with him. This man's face is indeed impeccably handsome. You are a human being too. People will sleep when they are sleepy. What's the big deal? Chu Sensio said, then thought about it and then said, who gave you the impression that our Chu family are all fierce? Our Chu family treats servants very well. They are all working, and there is no distinction between high and low. Little girl, is this your first day at work? The little princess was startled when Chu Sensio called her a little girl with a smile. This bold and unruly man actually called her that. He can call the little girl too? That is His Majesty the King's nickname for her. The little princess was not in a good mood, but she still tried her best to hide something and said to Chu Sensio, "Well, it's your first day at work, so what should I teach you, young master?" Chu Sensio frowned and murmured in a low voice, "Everyone else's voice is pretty good, so why do you think your voice is weird?" The little princess heard this, curled her lips, and said in her heart, "Because I am a princess. It is unreasonable for me to call you young master." "Then you can call me young master, that's what they all call, like eldest young master, little young master and so on." Chu Sensio said, then stretched, yawned, and said, "I'm sleepy, so I'm going to bed first. You should also rest early. You, by the way, what's your name?" The little princess was stunned. By the way, she hadn't decided on a pseudonym for herself yet. "Well, just call me Xiao Yu." "Xiao Yu, okay, I'll remember you." After Chu Sensio finished speaking, he walked past the little princess. Little princess actually, the clothes Chu Sensio put on himself were moved to the stairs. The little princess looked at the dress and murmured in her heart, "This guy seems to be pretty good, he has no pretense and is quite warm." After thinking about this, the little princess immediately shook her head and changed her expression. No, what was she thinking? The purpose of her coming here this time was to find weaknesses for Chu Sensio. How could she find strengths instead? So, in the meeting just now, it seemed that no weak points could be attacked. If I have to say it, he is too handsome to make people feel insecure, and he always likes to smile and seems to like to flirt with women. With this thought in mind, the little princess picked up the coat that Chu Sensio had dropped on the stairs, and was about to throw it into the laundry room. But the little princess walked in the corridor for a long time and suddenly realized a very serious problem. The Chu family is too big and she hasn't figured out the structure yet, so where is the laundry room? Forget it, let's just grab a random person and ask. The little princess asked a random person, and the person was a little surprised. "So we are both maids and you don't even know where the laundry room is?" End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuen Suya. Chapter 1653. Chapter 1653 Extra Chapter of the Chu Brothers, 7. Forget it, I decided to tell you because you look so good. The man thought so in his heart, and then said sweetly to the little princess, "Go to this corridor, turn left 3 times and then right twice, and finally go straight and you can see it." The little princess listened in a daze, then nodded. "Well, turn left twice, turn right 3 times and go straight, turn left twice, turn right 3 times and go straight, turn left, ah." The little princess was silently reciting the route provided by the young lady just now, but just when she was concentrating on it, she was suddenly hit by an oncoming person. The little princess felt her waist tighten. The man put his hands on her waist and supported her to prevent her from falling backwards and falling to the ground. "Are you okay?" Chu Sensio asked. After a closer look, he realized that the person was not the maid who had just met him. It was quite a coincidence that we met again so soon. The little princess quickly pushed Chu Sensio away, her face heated up, and she blurted out, "You are so bold, how dare you? He actually dared to take advantage of me." The little princess reacted and swallowed it alive. In the end, she looked at Chu Sensio with bulging cheeks and wide eyes. Chu Sensio was stunned for a moment. Looking at her appearance, he found it a little funny, so he said, "I saved you. If it weren't for me, you would have fallen." "I wouldn't have fallen if it weren't for you," the little princess retorted. Chu Sensio had nothing to say, so he shrugged helplessly and said, "Okay, I'm sorry." The little princess's originally arrogant and domineering face immediately softened, and she asked Chu Sensio incredulously, "You apologize to me? Didn't you mean it yourself? I almost made you fall, so I should apologize." "Chu Sheng repair house should be said." The little princess suddenly stopped talking, and just looked at Chu Sensio with an opaque look. "How strange, this person is really strange. By the way, shouldn't you go to bed? Where else are you going at night?" As Chu Sensio spoke, he realized that the little princess had been holding his coat in her arms. "Are you here to give me a coat?" No, I'm going to take it to the laundry room." The little princess suddenly thought of something. "Didn't you say you were going to bed?" "Yes, I just went to see my brother and went to bed right away," Chu Sensio said. "Why do you think something is weird? What are the two of them doing here in the middle of the night discussing whether to sleep or not? Oh, by the way, give me the clothes. No need to wash them. I will wear them tomorrow." As Chu Sensio said this, he took away the dress that the little princess was holding in her arms. "Go to bed quickly." "Oh." The little princess turned around and suddenly her mind went blank. Why was she walking around where she was sleeping? She seemed to have forgotten again. So the little princess turned around again and called out to Chu Sensio, who had already walked some distance. "Chu Sensio, wait." It was only after the little princess blurted out that she realized something was wrong. Given her status, she should be called young master. Chu Sensio stopped and looked back at her. "What's wrong?" The girl showed a little embarrassment, her cheeks were stained with a hint of red, and she whispered, I forgot where I live. Your family is too big, and I am a bit road crazy." End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuen Suya. Chapter 1654. Chapter 1654 Extra Chapter of the Chu Brothers, 8th. Chu Sensio raised his eyebrows. "What the hell? Is this okay? Aren't servants going to receive training before they come in? How come you haven't even figured out your own home yet?" When Chu Sensio asked about his concerns, the little princess said, "Well, I have been trained, but I was a bit stupid and didn't remember." The little princess rolled her eyes in her heart. She would have figured out the structure of the Chu family before taking action. "I was careless. I hope Chu Sensio will not be suspicious because of this." Chu Sensio didn't think much about it. Instead, he approached the little princess and said, "I'll take you there. I'll ask the housekeeper to take you around tomorrow to familiarize yourself with the environment at home. It's not good for you to keep getting lost like this." "Uh-huh." The little princess nodded seriously. Chu Sensio and the little princess were walking side by side. Chu Sensio glanced at the charming woman beside him with his peripheral vision. "I think there's something weird about you." The little princess's heart skipped a beat and she lost her sense of proportion. Did Chu Sensio see any clues? Where is the weirdness?" the little princess asked, feeling very uneasy and uneasy. "Just, not like a servant," Chu Sensio said. It's over," He really started to doubt it. The little princess thought so and swallowed silently. What did you do before? You don't seem to come from an ordinary family, but rather like a pampered young lady. Serving others as a maid is obviously not something you are good at. Chu Sensio said. So this is what Chu Sensio suspected? The little princess slowly breathed a sigh of relief and answered Chu Sensio's question. You are right, I used to be a young lady from a wealthy family, but my father went bankrupt after his business failed, so I became a maid. I'm still curious about who recruited you here, Chu Sensio joked. I must have been tempted by your beauty. The little princess was puzzled and a little angry. Was Chu Sensio pretending to say that she was incompetent? Why do you say that? The little princess asked angrily. What do you say yourself? Chu Sensio looked at her and smiled slyly. If you are not familiar with the structure of your employer's house, you may get lost at home. Everyone was doing something and she fell asleep on the stairs. The clothes were taken to the laundry room to be washed without asking Chu Sensio's opinion. Moreover, Chu Sensio also wanted to say that the clothes could only be dry cleaned, and washing the clothes would damage them. The little princess has nothing to say. She seems to be not behaving very well. The little princess felt uncomfortable because she was actually being laughed at by Chu Sensio. Okay, here we are, this is where you sleep. Chu Sensio said. Thanks. The little princess whispered, looking at the room in front of her that was not luxurious but was still comfortable, and could barely live in it. It's just that she has begun to miss her pink lace princess bed. She must complete the task as soon as possible and return to the embrace of her princess bed. By the way, bring tomorrow's breakfast to my room, I won't go down to eat it. Chu Sensio said. The little princess looked up at Chu Sensio blankly. Chu Sensio patted his forehead, and then said word by word, my room is on the far left of this corridor. The one with the blue door is mine. The little princess nodded, pursed her lips, and then whispered, good night. Good night. Chu Sensio said, then turned and left. The little princess looked at the back of Chu Sensio as he left. I thought to myself, so what are the shortcomings? End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuen Suya. Chapter 1655. Chapter 1655 Extra Chapter of the Chu Brothers, 9. The next day, the little princess followed Chu Sensio's instructions and prepared to serve breakfast to Chu Sensio. But when the little princess walked to the dining room, she saw a figure wearing a white woolen sweater. She thought it was Chu Sensio who had come down, so she walked over quietly and asked, Master, do you still need me to deliver your breakfast to the room? Go. Since everyone has come down, there is no need to go to the room to have breakfast. Just as the little princess was thinking this, the figure turned around and met the little princess' clear eyes. Chu Shengming frowned, glanced at the little princess and asked indifferently, are you new here? I haven't seen her before. The little princess murmured in her heart, didn't she already see her yesterday? Oh, right. The little princess suddenly realized it and opened her eyes wide. Ah, are you the eldest young master? Chu Shengming nodded, so did he recognize him as Chu Sensio? Ah, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. The little princess bowed slightly, and then said, young master, I'll leave first. The little princess said, carrying breakfast and going back. It's really embarrassing, I actually recognized Chu Shengming as Chu Sensio. But the two of them look so similar that it's really hard to tell them apart without looking carefully. The little princess walked up the stairs with breakfast, walked through a long corridor, and then saw the blue door. Compared with the yellow doors next to it, this color seems very abrupt. The little princess knocked on the door, but there was no response after knocking many times. So is Chu Sensio in the room? The little princess was confused and simply opened the door. The little princess opened the door and went in. She saw Chu Sensei wearing casual clothes, sitting in front of the computer, wearing a pair of headphones and playing games heartily. From time to time, a few words burst out from his mouth, "Quick, quick, cover me. I'm almost out of mana. Get on the road, get on the road." The little princess curled her lips and silently made a note to Chu Sensei, a young man addicted to the internet. "So the reason why I got up so early was to play games, and I didn't even bother to go down to eat breakfast. How decadent." Another shortcoming was caught. The little princess put the breakfast in Chu Sensei's hand. Chu Sensei noticed it from the corner of his eye and said without raising his head, "Thank you." After a while, Chu Sensei died, ending the game. Chu Sensei took off his headphones, glanced at the breakfast at hand, and then at the girl standing in front of him who hadn't left yet. "Hey, when did you come in?" Chu Sensei asked. "When you are on the road." The little princess' tone showed a little dissatisfaction. She just knocked so many times outside the door that her hands almost hurt. Who knew Chu Sensei was actually playing games inside? Playing with toys is debilitating, and online games are the source of all evil. The little princess thought so, and her impression of Chu Sensei began to deteriorate again. Chu Sensei took a sip of milk and smiled lightly after listening to the little princess's words. "By the way, do you play games?" The little princess shook her head and said, "If you don't play, it's a waste of time." Chu Sensei smiled again, "You haven't played games since you were a child." Then life has lost a great beauty, Chu Sensei thought, and took another bite of the sandwich. "Do puzzle games count?" The little princess asked, "Guess idioms, crossword puzzles and the like." Chu Sensei looked at the little princess with an expression as if he had discovered a new world. "Damn, you are really a weird flower." The little princess was startled. Chu Sensei said dirty words. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuen Suya. Chapter 1656. Chapter 1656 Extra Chapter of the Chu Brothers, 10. So the little princess made another mental note to say dirty words. It seems that today's harvest is good. I found 2 shortcomings early in the morning. The little princess grinned and smiled softly. "Hey, do you want to give it a try?" Chu Sensei suddenly felt that it was not good to lie to children. "Don't want." The little princess sternly refused, and even said in a nice way, "I want to refuse the temptation." Chu Sensei burst into laughter. "Oh my god, you are so cute. What a good baby. You are too self-disciplined, ha ha ha." The little princess was inexplicably praised by Chu Sensei, so she ignored him and still looked at Chu Sensei with a straight face. Chu Sensei finished his breakfast quickly. The little princess packed it up and prepared to take it out. "Hey, remember to bring me lunch as well." Hearing this sentence from behind, the little princess stopped, then looked back at Chu Sensei with a dark face, with a look of disgust on her face. "No, go down and eat by yourself." Chu Sensei didn't expect that she would reject him. Although this maid is very different, isn't it too personal? He actually didn't even listen to the young master's orders. Fortunately, he, Chu Sensei, has a good temper and doesn't care about her little girl's movies. "Hey, how did you become a maid?" Chu Sensei decided to give her an ideological education class. He really didn't expect that the other party thought the same way. "I'm doing it for your own good. You shouldn't be so decadent. Playing games will not bring you any good except a waste of time." The little princess taught Chu Sensei a lesson in a serious manner. Chu Sensei smiled and deliberately teased her, "But it can make me happy. That kind of emotion is virtual and cannot have any substantive effect. But it's enough for me to be happy." The little princess was stifled by Chu Shenxiu's remarks and was unable to refute. "You are using strong words to make sense." The little princess turned red with anger. "It's because your feudal thoughts have not been liberated." Chu Shenxiu said seriously, "Esports has become a profession now, and the salary is generous, and it is highly respected by young people. You should accept some new ideas, and don't think about the present with the ideas of the older generation." Things. The little princess frowned. How could it be her fault after what he said? This Chu Sensio is really good at eloquence. I can't even speak to him. I'm too lazy to tell you. The little princess adheres to a principle: if you can't beat someone, run away; if you can't persuade someone, just slip away. So what Chu Sensio didn't know was that the little princess made another note for him. She is too eloquent and likes to argue with strong arguments. If we get together in the future, we won't even be able to win a fight. When the little princess went to deliver food to Chu Sensio at noon, he was still playing games. The little princess put down her lunch and left with a long face. Chu Shenming noticed that Chu Sensio had not left the room all day, so he asked the little princess who had been delivering food to Chu Sensio, "What is he doing in his room all day?" "Playing games." The little princess answered truthfully. Chu Shenming was not surprised. Chu Sensio had always liked playing games. Although his skills are not very good, he has always had a dream of becoming an esports player since he was a child. Facts have proved that some dreams cannot be realized, and it is better to act according to your ability. When the little princess brought dinner to Chu Sensio, she found that Chu Sensio fell asleep on the table. "The computer was still on and I didn't have time to turn it off." The little princess sighed. She really didn't know how to take care of herself. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuen Suya. Chapter 1657. Chapter 1657 Extra Chapter of the Chu Brothers, 11. The little princess put Chu Sensio's dinner on the table, then turned around and went to Chu Sensio's bed to get a thin blanket, and gently covered Chu Sensio's body. How can people take care of others if they can't even take care of themselves? The little princess complained in a low voice, so Chu Sensio had one more shortcoming in his book. After the little princess covered herself with a blanket, she originally wanted to turn around and leave. Who knew that at this time, Chu Sensio suddenly babbled, "I don't want to marry the little princess, don't marry." The little princess paused, and a chill began to creep down her spine. Then he turned around and looked at the sleeping person with a long face. "Don't want to marry her? It's really funny, she doesn't want to marry him yet." Even so, the little princess still felt uncomfortable. What is it about her that is not worthy of him, Chu Sensio? He actually disliked her. In terms of origin, background, appearance, and talent, how could she not be worthy of Chu Sensio? The little princess became more and more angry as she thought about it, so she pulled off the blanket that had just been covering Chu Sensio, and angrily said to the back of Chu Sensio's head, "Forget it if you freeze to death." After saying that, the little princess stomped away. But when she walked to the door, she subconsciously looked back. After thinking about it, reason still defeated her sensibility. She gritted her teeth and went over to cover Chu Sensio with a blanket. Forget it, she is a princess, so she doesn't care about him. When he covered himself with a blanket for the second time, Chu Sensio woke up in a daze and saw the dark-faced little princess staring at him. He rubbed his sleepy eyes, yawned, and glanced at the things on the table. After a tidy dinner, I finally met the little princess's stinky face, huh? I actually fell asleep. As Chu Sensio spoke, the blanket slipped and fell to the ground. Chu Sensio bent down to pick it up, and then showed a bright smile to the little princess, with red lips and white teeth, warm and charming, which actually made the little princess's anger go away. The little princess curled her lips, feeling from the bottom of her heart that she was somewhat worthless. "Thank you." Chu Sensio held the blanket and said to the little princess, "You're welcome." The little princess replied with a straight face, watching Chu Sensio bring the dinner and prepare to eat it. The little princess seized the opportunity and asked Chu Sensio, "I just heard you talk in your sleep. You said you don't want to marry the little princess. Why?" Chu Sensio stuffed a mouthful of rice into his mouth, his cheeks bulging. He chewed a few mouthfuls and swallowed. He looked up at the little princess and said, "Did I just talk in my sleep?" Chu Sensio didn't know that he had the problem of talking in his sleep. Yeah, the little princess nodded, "That's what happened just now." Chu Sensio curled his lips and said, "Oh, that's fine." After saying this, Chu Sensio continued to eat. "So why don't you want to marry the little princess?" Chu Sensio met the little princess's gaze with a smile, "Why are you so nosy?" "I." The little princess thought for a while and said, "I happened to hear it, so I asked. After all, she is the little princess. Many people want to marry her but have no chance. Why do you still dislike her?" Chu Sensio smiled, "If you don't want to marry, you must be disgusted. I just don't like this fate arranged by others. Who I want to marry and who I want to live with in the future are all my own business. I don't like it. Being interfered with by others gives me no freedom at all." "Me too." The little princess felt that what Chu Sensio said touched her heart, so she blurted out this sentence excitedly. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuen Suya. Chapter 1658. Chapter 1658 Extra Chapter of the Chu Brothers, 12. As soon as the little princess said the words, she realized something was wrong, so she blinked quickly and explained, "Well, what I mean is that I also agree with your statement. If it were me, I would be the same as you." "Ideas?" Chu Sensio nodded, "That is to say, she is such an outstanding princess, she is not unmarried, and she is still so young. Why must she hang herself on a tree like mine?" The little princess who was praised smiled sweetly, and then said, "Since you don't want to marry someone else, why don't you tell the king clearly? Will he still force you to marry someone else?" As long as Chu Sensio opens his mouth and the little princess adds jealousy, won't their marriage be dissolved soon? Then there won't be so many things. The little princess had a beautiful idea, but as soon as Chu Sensio opened his mouth, this ideal was quickly shattered. How can it be so simple? Once His Majesty the King opens his mouth, it will be a certainty. Besides, the entire country knows that I have a marriage with the little princess. If it is suddenly cancelled, it will definitely attract many people's discussion. So since the king once this order is given, there is no possibility of taking it back." Chu Sensio sighed. He had no choice but to think clearly. Even though he knew that no matter what he did, it would be in vain, he was still unwilling to compromise. This contradictory mentality made Chu Sensio unwilling to face this absurd marriage. The little princess frowned. "It sounds like that's true from what you said, but if the little princess would rather die than surrender, what do you think is the chance of reversing this matter?" After hearing this, Chu Sensio looked at the little princess and said, "His Majesty the King loves this little daughter very much. If the little princess would rather die than obey, I don't think he will force it. But now I don't even know what others think. I don't know, I haven't even seen him in person, so if he is my little crush and really wants to marry me, this idea is just empty talk." The little princess rolled her eyes. Why is this person so narcissistic? The ghost is his little crush, and she really wants to marry him. But as long as this approach is feasible, it means there is still a way. The little princess said. Not only that, it also shows that the little princess's move is correct, as long as she finds a weakness in Chu Sensio and finds a place that can convince the king that she is unwilling to marry Chu Sensio. Then she could justifiably tell the king that she was breaking off her engagement with Chu Sensio. The little princess became more determined in her plan. Chu Sensio nodded, and then continued eating casually. The little princess raised the corners of her mouth and smiled happily. Chu Sensio glanced at her and didn't understand why she was so happy, but he didn't ask what the reason was. After Chu Sensio finished eating, the little princess went out with the leftover soup. Chu Sensio followed her, and then walked to her side. Chu Sensio looked at the little princess's hands out of the corner of his eye. They looked like tender skin and tender flesh, not like serving someone's hands at all. Although Chu Sensio knew that it was wrong to judge people by their appearance, the maid in front of him was really very good looking and elegant, and she didn't look like a servant. By the way, how old are you this year? Chu Sensio suddenly asked. The little princess was stunned for a moment. Her actual age cannot be said. She is still underage. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuen Suya. Chapter 1659. Chapter 1659 Extra Chapter of the Chu Brothers, 13. Don't you know it's rude to ask a girl her age? The little princess found an excellent way to refute, and after finishing speaking, she began to secretly rejoice at her cleverness. Chu Sensio was stunned for a moment and smiled. How old can you be? You look like a high school student. Because she was originally a high school student. The little princess thought so, but still replied to Chu Sensio, I just think you are praising me. Just telling the truth. Chu Sensio and the little princess were walking and chatting when they bumped into Chu Shenming. Chu Shenming glanced at these two people, and then looked at Chu Sensio. You are finally willing to come out of your room. Chu Sensio smiled and replied to Chu Shenming, I am playing a game, and the server is more fun, and the experience is great. So the little princess is sick, and you don't want to go and see her. When Chu Shenming said this, the smile on Chu Sensio's face immediately disappeared. The little princess on the side was heartbroken. How could she go see her at this time? Absolutely not, it will be exposed. Isn't it said that it is contagious? Chu Sensio said weakly. I'll be fine soon after doing a good job of protection, Chu Shenming said, I think you don't want to go. Chu Shenming had already seen through Chu Sensio's little thoughts. Chu Sensio stuck out his tongue and said, my parents didn't say anything. Brother, please stop mentioning this and don't make it difficult for me. Chu Shenming glanced at the little princess lightly. The little princess lowered her eyes, as if she was thinking about something. Chu Shenming retracted his gaze, then looked at Chu Sensio, and continued, I just remind you to be prepared. After all, if your parents don't tell you today, they will tell you tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Anyway, they will definitely tell you in these 2 days. Then what should I do? It's just a medical visit, we're not getting married where we are, so just relax, it's okay. Chu Shenming said lightly. The little princess held the dinner plate tightly with her hands and bit her lower lip. Chu Sensio, you must not visit the sick. I'm afraid that after visiting the doctor, I will get married on the spot. The princess is not yet underage. Chu Shenming reminded. But weren't my parents and the king discussing how to cultivate a relationship some time ago? They will definitely wait until the little princess recovers from her illness to force a match between the two of us to cultivate a relationship. Chu Sensio thought this, and suddenly felt that his life began to become darker. There is also the aspect of cultivating relationships. The little princess was shocked when she heard this. So how much did her father long for her to marry Chu Sensio? It was also a time to get engaged early, and it was also a time to develop feelings. Does that mean that they should get married as soon as she reaches the legal age? The little princess became angrier as she thought about it. It was clear that her father loved her the most. Ever since he was a child, he had followed her in everything, but why was he so paranoid and tough on this matter and insisting on marrying Chu Sensiu? Don't ask her for her own opinion, don't ask her if she has someone she likes, or what kind of boys she likes. Then, you should be prepared. Chu Shengming glanced at the little princess who kept her head down and remained silent, and said this to Chu Sensiu in a meaningful way. Chu Sensiu rolled his eyes and said, "Brother, you won't even help me. Now everything depends on your luck." Chu Shengming said and looked at the little princess again. "After all, people have already arrived at your door. Hasn't it already begun to cultivate feelings?" End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuen Suya. Chapter 1660. Chapter 1660 Extra Chapter of the Chu Brothers, 14. Chu Sensiu said self-deprecatingly, "The problem is that I am not a good person. When I was a child, I liked to shoot birds with a slingshot in the past, none of the goldfish, hamsters, rabbits, etc. died normally, so my tragic fate is actually destined now. Since you are so open-minded, I have nothing to say." Chu Shengming said. Just as he was about to leave, he turned back and added, "By the way, fate is a wonderful thing. What if you and the little princess fall in love? Do you think so? After all, you still have I haven't met in person, who knows what the situation will be like after meeting. It will be really sweet again." After hearing what Chu Shengming said, the little princess raised her head that had been lowered and rolled her eyes. Chu Sensiu also rolled his eyes and said, "Forget it, you can pull me down, you traitor. Forget it if you don't think of a way for me, but you are still making fun of me." Chu Shengming smiled and said nothing, and then left. At night, Chu Sensiu was lying on the bed thinking about what Chu Shengming said to him today. The more he thought about it, the more he couldn't sleep. However, what he said seems to make sense. The two people haven't met yet. What if they really fall in love with each other after they meet? Hey, no, Chu Sensiu still feels that the possibility of this happening is extremely low. The next day, Chu Senming's prophecy came true. Father and mother of Chu, they really discussed going together to visit the little princess. After all, she is her future daughter-in-law. Chu Sensiu doesn't feel sorry for her, but they do. Besides, as his fiancée, Chu Sensiu should also go and see her. "I don't go," Chu Sensiu said. "If you want to go, you can go. Why are you taking me with you? What are you talking about? You are my fiancé after all. What's wrong with showing reasonable concern?" Father Chu was so angry with Chu Sensiu that he spoke righteously. "Dad, you clearly know that I am opposed to this matter, but you never listen to my ideas." Chu Sensiu said, "I won't go anyway." Mother Chu came over with a feather duster and shouted to Chu Sensiu, "Are you going?" Chu Sensiu was so frightened that he immediately jumped up from the sofa. The little princess looked on in shock. "Mom, how old am I and you still use this? Isn't it embarrassing?" Feather duster is Chu Sensiu's childhood shadow that still lingers. Chu Sensiu was very naughty when he was a child. His hobby was getting into trouble and bullying his little cousin Xia Ying. Every time Chu Sensiu committed a crime, Chu's mother would come over with a feather duster to deal with Chu Sensiu. That's why Chu Sensiu's back feels cold when he looks at the feather duster. "So are you going or not? If you don't go, you will be the one who will be embarrassed later." Chu's mother put down her harsh words. Chu Sensiu looked up to the sky and sighed, what kind of parents did he have to deal with? "Go, go, go, isn't it enough for me to go?" Chu Sensiu completely bowed his head in front of the dark forces. The little princess was stunned. She didn't expect that Chu Sensiu, who was so aggressive just now, would surrender immediately the next second. It's really unbearable, so Chu Sensiu still can't count on it. She had to arrive at the palace before Chu Sensiu and the others set off, and then pretend to be sick so that the secret would not be exposed. So, after Chu Shenxiu and his family went out, the little princess immediately went out. The little princess called and made urgent arrangements for everything, and then set off on the journey back to the palace. End of this chapter.